Hello and welcome to South Bay Sports Radio. Here's your host, Nick Ingram.
Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to episode 55 of South Bay Sports Radio. We've made it to week 8. The final 3 games are upon us for most teams. On today's episode, we hear from Mira Costa coach Don Morrow ahead of the Mustangs meeting with Inglewood, Carson coach William Lowe following the Colts' victory over Gardena, and Redondo coach Keith Ellison after that big Seahawk victory over North Torrance. But first, here's your Dodgers update. They closed out game 1 with a little bit of stress, and this is coming from somebody who, if you don't know me, I am not a Dodger fan. Bases loaded, taking that 2-1 lead, and they bring in Blake Trinan. Game 2 went a lot differently than I thought. Dodgers took care of business, getting a complete game shutout from Yoshinobu Yamamoto to take a commanding 2-0 lead, coming back to Los Angeles for today and tomorrow at the very least. Seattle took a 2-0 lead coming home back to the Pacific Northwest. Game 3 was last night, and if you didn't see, Toronto made a little bit of noise in the series with a 13-4 victory. Game 4 is tonight in Seattle. Did you know in 1995 Randy Johnson went 18-2? I didn't know that. I mean, it's been 30 years. In the NFL, the Rams will be playing Jacksonville in England this Sunday. They most recently played in London in 2019. And USC visits Notre Dame this weekend in the 95th meeting for the Jules Shillelagh. Notre Dame leads the historic rivalry 52-37-5, including the Irish's 49-35 victory last year. USC is coming off that big victory over Michigan. Anything's possible. In case you're curious, Damien is unable to join me today. I've got a lot of stuff to cover. I did not want to miss out. 10 o'clock is a window that works for me. So drop me a message. Let me know what you think about today's episode. And please make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. All right, folks, let's fire up the time machine. Here's what went down this week in sports and pop culture history. October 12th, 1979, 2 NBA greats make their NBA debuts, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. October 13th, 1993, The Nightmare Before Christmas was released. October 14th, 1995, Pulp Fiction was released. Talk about that cast: John Travolta, Uma Thurman, Samuel L. Jackson, Harvey Keitel. Leave me a comment and let me know what your favorite Quentin Tarantino movie is, or if you remember him from your high school days. Apparently, he worked at the Movies in Manhattan Beach many moons ago. October 15th, 1999, Fight Club with Brad Pitt and Edward Norton hits theaters. October 15th, 2003, Kerry Wood goes yard in Game 7 of the NLCS. Cubs against Marlins. We remember that as the Steve Bartman game. I personally do miss pitchers hitting, but in all honesty, some people don't. What am I going to do? Complain? Nah, I'm done. October 16th, 1968, a band called the New Yardbirds played its first show in London. That band would later change its name to Led Zeppelin. October 17th, 1989, the Loma Prieta earthquake interrupts Game 1 of the World Series between the Oakland Athletics and the San Francisco Giants. And last but not least, October 17th, 2004, the Red Sox forced Game 5 against New York after trailing 3-0 in the series, becoming the first team in professional sports history to come back from a 3-0 deficit. Before we move on, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Rizzo's Pizza. That's right, nothing pairs better with sports than a fresh slice from Rizzo's. And here's the deal, you can get $10 off your next order of $20 or more. Nope, you're not hearing things. Just mention the code SBSRFan10 when you order. Maybe you're craving a hot turkey sandwich or some cinnamon breadsticks to go with the game. Whatever you choose, don't forget to mention the code SBSRFan10 and cash in on that discount. Not available with any other offers. Expires December 31st, 2025. All right, my friends, back to business. Oddly enough, we have a few bye weeks due to some leagues having fewer than 6 teams and one team having to forfeit its season. Here are the updated rankings. Lusinger improved to 5-1 and 2-0 in the Bay League after that big 40-14 victory over now number 4 Palos Verdes at SoFi Stadium. Next up for the Olympians is Culver City. I reached out to Coach Jason Miller and asked what the key is to not overlooking Culver City, and he said, "We want to win the Bay League. Culver City is in the way, and the Centaurs are our focus. That is homecoming for the Olympians. Lusinger will be without Samu Moala after he was ejected following a sideline skirmish during the second half against Palos Verdes. Sophomore quarterback Russell Sakona is done for the year after fracturing his throwing hand on the Olympians' first drive of the second quarter." Some stats from that game: Journey Tunga threw for 78 yards, rushed for 68 more, and totaled 4 touchdowns. 3 on the ground and 1 in the air. When I reached out to Jason Miller, I told him he reminded me of the Oregon State brothers, James and Jaquiz Rogers, that were difficult to game plan for. Jalen Cox led the Olympian defense with 9 tackles, including 3 for a loss, 2 quarterback sacks. Jamal Fay had 8 tackles. Ted Tuimauga had 7. Lusinger's defense recorded 12 tackles. Pakipole Moala's 101-yard pick 6. Moving on, number 2, Sarah drops to 3-4 and 0-2 after that loss to Loyola. That game was tied at halftime. Next on the schedule for the Cavaliers is Chaminade. This game will be at El Camino College. I'm going to focus on some Sarah defensive stats, mostly because the Cavalier defense has been on the field so much. Joe Boulder leads the unit with 53 tackles. Kari Wilder has 47 tackles and 6 sacks. Definitely looking for Sarah to get back into the win column against Chaminade. Anything is possible, especially when it's a Scott Altenberg coach team. Mira Costa sits at number 3 in the Daily Breeze top 15 rankings. They are now 6-1, including 2-0 in the Bay League after beating Culver City 37-17. Mira Costa now turns its attention to number 5 Inglewood, who is coming off a 57-9 thumping of Lawndale. Sentinels are now 3-4 overall and 1-1 league play. I reached out to Coach Milvon James at Inglewood, and he told me the biggest threat to Inglewood's success is the playmaking ability of Mira Costa quarterback Liam Meeker. Before I move on any further, let's hear from Mira Costa coach Don Morrow. Coach Don Morrow, Mira Costa High School. Coach, Inglewood is up next on your schedule. How tough have they been over the last couple of years in regard to not only the talent, but the athleticism and the physicality that they possess?
Yeah, no, they've been tremendous for several years in a row now. I remember them, Hassan Longstreet, was their quarterback for a minute, and they just had some great players. Looking at their schedule, they could really easily be 5-2. Their losses are to some of the best teams in California, and Lusinger, Los Alamitos, etc. Yes, it's going to be a tough task for us, Nick, I'm sure.
What's going to be the key to not only making it a game, but pulling out a victory, like I said, against a tough Inglewood team?
Oh, there's a bunch of them. They have 2 really dynamic guys up front, so we've got to somehow try to get them under control as much as we can when we have the ball. And then, the usual stuff, obviously, taking care of the ball, which we've been doing a good job on, but hopefully we can take care of the ball and kind of minimize our number of penalties. We've been doing a good job in both those areas. Our kicking game has been sound. So, I think winning the kicking game is probably going to be a big deal. And then just finding some kind of way to corral all that speed. They got tremendous speed.
All right, Coach talked about tremendous speed. We're going to touch on some Inglewood stats, but you can hear more from Coach Morrow on episode 54 of South Bay Sports Radio. That is available now. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, check it out. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Definitely need some more comments. All right, Inglewood stats. Lincoln John threw for 352 yards and 3 touchdowns. Allen Wilson had 2 of those receiving touchdowns to go along with 119 receiving yards. Donovan Randolph had the other touchdown to go along with 99 yards. Samaji Welch and Marlon Watson combined for 282 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. Defensively, Ira Cordova had 11 tackles. Sorrell Howard had a huge game, 10 tackles, 2 quarterback sacks, and a fumble recovery. And Miles Smith added 2 sacks. Some Mira Costa stats. Liam Meeker threw for 207 yards and 2 touchdowns, rushed for 37 yards and another score. A.J. McBean rushed for 91 yards and a score. Of Liam Meeker's 2 touchdowns, both were to his brother Luke, who tallied 87 yards on both of those receptions. He also had an interception on defense. Defensively, Joaquin Wagner-Bagues led the Mustangs with 12 tackles. Magnus Johnson had 10 to go along with 3 sacks, and Mira Costa finished with 5 sacks on the night. To me, this is the South Bay game of the week. Inglewood, Mira Costa, definitely second place in the Bay League on the line. I think the biggest thing is, does Mira Costa have the depth to corral the speed of Inglewood and to keep Liam Meeker from scrambling out of the pocket and putting the ball down and running? Moving along. Palos Verdes fell to 4-3 and 1-1 in league play after its loss to Lusinger, and will shift its focus to Lawndale, who comes in at 4-3 overall and 0-2 in Bay League play. Ryan Rakowski was ejected following the sideline skirmish that also saw Samu Moala and 2 other players ejected. After speaking with Palos Verdes athletic director Brian Shapiro, the officials were not satisfied with videos of the play that showed Rakowski not throwing a punch and will proceed with the 1-game suspension. Palos Verdes wasn't really able to get much going against Lusinger until the 4th quarter, scoring all 14 points in that final period. I asked Lawndale coach Norris Milton what the key will be to getting back on track against a team like Palos Verdes, despite them being out without Rakowski. Coach told me the Cardinals have to focus on finishing and playing with a relentless effort for 4 quarters, as well as limit the self-inflicted wounds. Milton also said that even without Ryan Rakowski, Palos Verdes is very well coached. Guy Gardner is outstanding, and they're a dangerous team. Giorgio Damasio is a really good quarterback and has the pieces around him to be successful. Knowing how PV plays after a loss, and with Inglewood and Mira Costa looming, I think that PV cannot overlook this game. I don't really see Palos Verdes as the kind of program that overlooks a game like this, knowing how tough that loss was, how tough that sits with them. And moving forward, I really feel that PV is going to take care of business and do their best knowing what's next. Number 6, Torrance is now 7-0 after blanking Peninsula and turns its attention to South Torrance, which re-enters the top 15 at number 14. The Spartans scored 30 of their 37 points in the second half, including 17 in the 4th quarter before falling to Santa Monica 42-37. South is now 3-4 overall and 0-2 in the Pioneer League. Some Torrance stats for you. Gibson Turner is 2 yards short of 1,500 yards. He's thrown 18 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. The backfield duo of Von Reinhardt and Kason Presley are up to 13 touchdowns and 1,057 yards. Elias Emerson sits at 490 receiving yards. I asked Torrance coach Raymond Carter what the focus is going to be against South, and his answer, Chase Spar, Spartan quarterback. He's putting up crazy passing numbers this year. He's close to 2,000 yards and is a super competitor. A good player, and we have to slow him down. So here's some stats on Chase Spar. He has over 2,000 yards total offense. He's thrown for 1,786 and rushed for 299 more, totaling 23 touchdowns while throwing 6 interceptions. Nathan Karakis has 292 rushing yards and 3 scores. Jacob Karakis has 686 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. I asked Matt Mishler about the key against a team like Torrance, and he jokingly responded with, I was hoping you, Nick, had an idea how to pull this one off. He called this the biggest challenge of the year, and the Spartans are in for a really tough one. In all seriousness, he said Torrance is playing very well, and South will need to try to find a way to slow down Von Reinhardt and Kason Presley, which is easier said than done. He also told me that Gibson Turner is doing a great job. Their offensive line is playing well and presents problems for the Spartans, but the South needs to limit big plays and figure out how to create turnovers. South needs this one to stay in the hunt for the playoffs. Do the Spartans have enough magic to pull this one off, or does Torrance move to 8-0 we're going to see tomorrow night, won't we? Number 7, Redondo Union comes in at 3-4 and 1-1 in the Pioneer League after defeating now number 9 Torrance 34-7. These two teams flip spot in Damien's top 15 rankings. Redondo hosts Santa Monica, which comes in at 5-2 and 2-0 in the Pioneer League. I will be at this game, and I will try my best not to get locked into the parking lot. Against North was the return of Bo Osmus, who saw only one play in the Torrance game after being cleared on Thursday. Cole Leinart did not play against North after suffering a concussion late in the game against Torrance. I've got a soundbite from Coach Keith Ellison, again, a regular guest of South Bay Sports Radio. Here we go. Past week against North, you guys come out and have a game that you've been waiting to see. What do you see out of this team this week?
You know, it was really good to see us just be physical and really try to kind of impose our will in that game. I think we ran close to almost about 275 yards on the ground, which it was nice to see the O-line be able to get some push. And, you know, I'm about to make it an understatement of the year, but, you know, having Bo Osmus back on the field isn't a bad thing at all either. So he really was a big boost for our offense.
How big was that? I know you just said he's a big boost for your offense, but he got one big carry against Torrance for 32 yards.
Yeah.
And then he comes back against North. And how different does it make your offense with him at tailback?
I mean, it's, you know, the game against Torrance was he had one day of practice before he went out there and played. And so he was very limited in how much we could use him. We don't want to overextend him. And now, you know, as he starts to ramp back up and gets more comfortable, I mean, even against North, I mean, we only gave him the ball 12 times in that game, but it was such an such an impact he had on the, I mean, the second play of the game, he went for 52 yards and a touchdown. So, I think that kind of speaks for himself, how much he brings to our offense. Like he's a dynamic player, and having him on the field opens up opportunities for the other guys as well out there.
All right, that was Coach Keith Ellison. That episode is number 52, available here on YouTube and anywhere else you listen to your podcasts. So the return of Bo Osmus saw this offense work in a much different way. The senior had 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. Redondo's ground game picked up 280 yards on the day. Sophomore quarterback Brady Grow, which Coach Ellison talks about a little bit more in that episode, threw only 7 passes, he completed 5 of them, 2 for touchdowns and tallying 128 yards. I also asked Coach Ellison about the Seahawk defense because it was a big key to the squad's success last year. He told me it's not the worst time of the year to be clicking. Redondo's defense had 2 fumble recoveries against North. Some defensive stats for the Seahawks. Brock Herrera leads the defense with 42 tackles and 3.5 sacks. Tyler Sellis is second on the team with 40 tackles. Santi De La Torre and Kyle Westbrook have 2 interceptions each. Like I said, I will be at this game. This one should be a good one for second place in the Pioneer League. Santa Monica put up 21 in the fourth quarter against South Torrance, 21 in the second half against North. My question for you to answer in the comments: can Redondo's offense keep up with Santa Monica, and can its defense make the necessary stops it needs? Moving on, number 8, Carson comes in at 4-3 and 1-0 in the Marine League after defeating Gardena 49-20. Gardena dropped to 2-5 overall and 1-1 in the Marine League and fell out of the top 15 with this loss. The Colts host Banning, which come in at 4-4 and 0-2 in the Marine League, who are coming off of that 55-13 loss to San Pedro last week. This marked the Pilots' 4th consecutive loss after starting the year 4-0. We're going to hear right now from Carson Coach William Lowe. So, you guys go into the game against Gardena coming off a bye. What were some things that you saw in that game that you'd been waiting to see over those first 6 games?
Yeah, well, really, just coming out of a bye, it's good to get healthy, but I don't know, in the past, teams struggle sometimes coming out of a bye just because you're 2 weeks off from not having, live game speed. And we really executed well early on. We chose to take the ball and went down and scored in 5 plays. And, we had really focused on the bye week just on ourselves, just getting better things. We had little things we could do to get better. And then just trying to shore up some execution type stuff, which was really the focus going into the game.
You can find more from Coach William Lowe, including his move from Kansas City to Southern California, episode 53 here on YouTube and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Coach Lowe talked a lot about the team aspect, saying football is one of those games where you can't rely on just one player to win. He's not wrong about that, but still, we're going to ramble off some Carson stats for you. Chris Fields, the Daily Breeze Player of the Week, threw for 4 touchdowns and 211 yards, completing 12 of his 16 passes. Nathan Williams had 104 of those receiving yards and a touchdown, and Jordan Daniel had 2 touchdowns and 77 yards on 5 catches. On the year, Fields has thrown for just 944 yards and rushed for 392 more. He has 17 touchdowns and thrown just 3 interceptions. Eric Myers leads the Colt rushing attack with 481 yards and 5 touchdowns. One of the things I talked with Coach about was multi-sport athletes, and defensively, multi-sport athlete Xavier Allen, who also plays baseball, Carson in that game against Gardena with 9 tackles and a sack. Kingston Sula had 8 tackles and 2.5 sacks to up his total to 46 tackles and 11 sacks on the year. Preston Leomidi leads the Colts with 48 tackles, and the defense has forced 10 turnovers. When I spoke with Banning coach Nate Hollister about this game, he told me that Noah Tuvalu, Alonzo Ruiz, and Cesario Cuevas are all out against Carson. Cody Galloway is out for the year after suffering a torn meniscus. Cody is the 3rd Galloway brother to suffer the same injury, all 3 happening via non-contact. A little bit more from Coach Hollister. He said the only silver lining is that the players who were originally suspended for 6 games after the Gardena incident had their penalty reduced to 4. If we can secure a first-round win, our offensive line, if we can secure a first-round win in the playoffs, our offensive line will be back at full strength for the rest of the postseason. Against Gardena, Banning had 3 starting linemen tossed. 2 received 6-game suspensions, and the 3rd was hit with a 1-game suspension. In Hollister's words, that plus the injuries have been brutal. This is something new. The LA City section is imposing a 6-game suspension for fighting. That goes to show you that they are done. They do not want anybody fighting on the field. So the big if from Coach Hollister, who also told me, was the big if is if Carson can secure that first-round playoff win. They've got to get there first. My question to you is, does Banning have the depth to make this a game, or is this going to be a running clock in the second half? Number 9, North Torrance dropped to 4-3 overall and 0-2 in the Pioneer League after that loss to Redondo. The Saxons now visit Peninsula Friday for the Panthers' annual night game. Peninsula comes in at 1-6 overall and 1-1 in league play. The Saxons' points against Redondo came with the game already well in hand. Redondo was up 34-0. North won last year's meeting 35-0. In my honest opinion, I think that North needs this game more in order to stay in the hunt for the playoffs. Number 10, San Pedro defeated Banning 55-13. Now gets a week to rest before closing the season with a visit to Gardena before hosting Carson to close out the regular year. This game was a full-blown offensive display of a second quarter. San Pedro scored on 6 consecutive drives with the ball. Junior quarterback Seth Lorio eclipsed the 2,000-yard mark with a 291-yard, 4-touchdown performance, including 215 yards in the second quarter. Slorio currently sits at 2,138 yards with 25 touchdowns. Elias Redlew finished that game against Banning with 155 yards. Number 11, El Segundo improved to 6-1 and 2-0 in Pioneer League play after shutting out Beverly Hills 59-0. Next up for the Eagles is Centennial before a non-league game against El Rancho. Against Beverly Hills, Ryan Wyasek threw for 200 yards and 5 touchdowns, completing 10 of his 14 passes. Rocco Taylor had 97 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Spencer Osborne had 2 catches, both touchdowns, and 2 interceptions on defense. Wyachek is up to 1,296 yards passing and 529 more rushing. He's thrown for 20 touchdowns, rushed for 4 more, and to this point, goose egg on the interceptions. El Segundo's defense, meanwhile, has forced 26 turnovers on the year, including 16 interceptions. Alex Thies has 4 of those picks. The question, in my eyes, is how many points can El Segundo score, and can its defense keep Centennial off the scoreboard? Let me know what you think in the comments. Mary Star of the Sea comes in at number 12. The Stars came from behind to beat Santa Monica 27-26, improving to 5-2 overall and 2-0 in the Camino Real League. Next up for the Stars is 1-7 Bosco Tech before the unwanted bye week, thanks to Moneyman, and closing out the season at St. Bernard. In the game against St. Monica, Tanner Rollins threw for 222 yards, completing 19 of his 22 passes. He threw 2 touchdowns, but also threw 3 interceptions as the Stars dug themselves into a 26-0 hole. The tailback duo of Johnny Rivera and Giuseppe Verzi rushed for 226 yards and a pair of touchdowns. I'm going to focus on Rivera for a second because he's a sophomore. He added a receiving touchdown against St. Monica and is now up to 923 yards rushing and 13 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, he has 26 tackles, 17 for a loss, and 4 sacks. The Stars' defense has a total of 15 sacks. My biggest question for you is, can the Stars take care of business this week, get healthy, and close out the season against St. Bernard? And last but not least, West Torrance improves to 3-4 overall and 1-0 in league play, re-entered the top 15 after its 42-6 victory over Hawthorne. The Warriors now visit Beverly Hills. Jack McInnes ran for 3 touchdowns and 71 yards. Dominic Gallia and Dylan Goby combined for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Blake Ely added a receiving touchdown and an interception. Ely and McInnes have 5 touchdowns on the season. I'm going to focus on another sophomore because Super Sophomore Day. Blake Ely, Johnny Rivera, Brady Grow. Blake Ely leads the Warrior defense with 47 tackles and He leads the Warrior defense with 47 tackles and has added 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery on the year. This is West's chance at second place in the Ocean League behind El Segundo. But there's a big if the Warriors can take care of business to close out the year, leading up to that Week 10 meeting with El Segundo. That one's going to be a fun one, West at El Segundo. And that's going to wrap the top 15 discussion of the week. Sadly, Damien was unable to join me today, but I'm not finished yet. Flag football. Redondo finishes the regular season at 17-3, taking the Bay League title behind a 20-0 victory over Mira Costa on Tuesday. Torrance wins the Pioneer League behind a 40-6 victory over West. The Tartars improved to 13-4 on the year and went unbeaten in the Pioneer League. Inglewood, a team that might make its way into the top 10, blanked Beverly Hills 38-0, winning the Ocean League crown and finished the regular season 10-7 and 6-1 in league play. CIF playoff brackets will be released Friday at 2 p.m. Let me know if you think that I should go live with when those brackets are released. Girls volleyball. Redondo Union took 3 of 4 games against Mira Costa Tuesday to forge a tie atop the Bay League heading into the postseason. Redondo finished the year 29-6, Mira Costa 23-9. Both finished 7-1 in league play. Bishop Montgomery swept Sacred Heart on Tuesday, taking the Delray League crown behind a 20-5 finish and an 8-0 league record. Here's a trivia question for you. Did you know current Seattle Storm UNBA coach Noel Quinn was also an All-American volleyball player at Bishop Montgomery? And South Torrance finished off its regular season Wednesday against Sage Hill. The Spartans went into that match with a 24-8 record and were 6-1 in the Pioneer League. However, North Torrance pulled off a huge 5-set thriller in the season's final week against South to finish 24-8-1. Volleyball pairings will be released Saturday morning at 10 a.m. That's this Saturday, October the 18th. All right, my friends, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate your time. This one was a quick one. No Damian, no discussion, all Nick Ingram. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Follow me along on YouTube, South Bay Sports Radio, Instagram, South Bay Sports Radio. Leave your comments. Who do you want to hear from next week? I've got some fun episodes coming up next week. I've got a mental training guest. So if you're looking for something that's outside of just talking sports, let's go. And that is going to do it for this episode 55. Thank you again for joining me. Have a great day.